Hey everybody, it's Dr. Will Pulgarin, and I'm the implementation specialist here at Thinking Nation. Thank you for joining me for this presentation on one of the best tools that we have on our platform and one of the best strategies you could use with your students to teach historical thinking called Thinks. And today, the goal of this presentation, I'm going to take you through Thinks. I'm going to take you through some of the ways you can apply it and use it in your class, the frequency with which you should be using it, and then I'm going to provide the resource itself. So, Thinks is a document analysis tool, and I know from experience that, as a history teacher, that primary and secondary documents are so important for students to read or to go through. But I know that if I put a primary source document in front of my students without a way for them to look at it, a lot of the times they get tripped up by the language, they don't really understand the context, and they begin to misunderstand the main point of the document itself. This can happen with the visual as well. And so I know that as history teachers, going through documents is important, but providing students a way to go through these documents is more important. And this is where the Thinks document analysis tool comes in. Now, Thinks can be used for not only documents, it can be used for political cartoons, art, images, all types of visuals, posters, maps, videos, artifacts, and sound recordings, and it can be used repeatedly throughout the week or the month. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Now, Thinks is a strategy that we use here at Thinking Nation, that it's tested and proven to help your students process and understand documents and to promote historical thinking. And Thinks is an acronym that stands for T is the target audience. So who is the target audience of this document that the students are looking at, or this visual that they're looking at? H, what is the historical context of it? When is this document taking, does it take place? What does it signify about the time? What does it say about the time? What is the intended purpose of this document or this visual? What new vocabulary or words are in the document that might stop students from truly understanding the meaning of the document? What's the key perspective? What is the goal? What do we know about the author's time period and their perspective on what they're writing? And the significance of the document. Now, we know that Thinks is a strategy that can be used repeatedly with students, and what changes is the document or the thing that the students are analyzing, but the process remains the same. So at the very beginning, yes, you go through this process with the students, and maybe a second time, but after the third or fourth time, the students begin to get it, and they can easily have look at a document. You give them a primary source document, a secondary source document, or a visual, and they can go through it using Thinks. Now, here's an example of a primary source. This document, Ain't I a Woman, by Sojourner Truth, was delivered as a speech in 1851. And so the students have, and all our documents on our platform are one-pagers, but the students go through this together, by themselves, with the teacher, and then you say, we're going to use the Thinks document analysis for primary sources to go through this. And so the students begin to look over the document and fill in the information. They begin to think historically about this primary source document. Now they have a lens by which to analyze the document. This can also be done for secondary sources. Now here's a graph that is used in textbooks, in all types of historical situations, but without a tool, the students really struggle to get the most out of it. And so Thinks has a document analysis tool for secondary sources. And again, the students go through it. They can go through it in pairs. They can go through it as a class, and they fill it out. We also have Thinks for multiple sources. Here's two sources: the Declaration, an excerpt of the Declaration of Independence, and an excerpt of the Declaration of Sentiments by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And the students have two documents here, and they can read through them. What was the historical context that these documents were written? What is the intended purpose of these documents? And then the students are able to extract the most important information and think historically about these documents. And finally, like I talked about, we have visual documents. Political cartoons tend to be some of the most famous, most used documents. But you can have artifacts, you can have art, you can have pictures, different types of things. And this a document analysis sheet helps students go through visuals sources. And again, you as a teacher can go through it together with them and so on. So I'll tell you how I use these. As a history teacher, I would print these 4 thinks sheets, and I used the interactive notebook. I wasn't using too much computers as much as teachers are now, but I was using the interactive notebook. I would paste this into their interactive notebook, and every week I would give them a new document, maybe the Gettysburg Address, this document, the White Man's Burden, and I would say, guys, I want you to please look at your Thinks document analysis 4 primary sources. Here's the document, and they would write it on a piece of paper, always using the same guiding questions to write it on a piece of paper. That way I didn't have to print multiple copies of this Thinks analysis sheet. They had it in their notebook. They knew the questions. And the only thing I had to change was the document itself. Now, our executive director, I was talking to him about this, and he said that in his classroom, he was a middle school teacher, he would have document analysis Thursdays. And so the kids knew every Thursday they were going to get some kind of a document to analyze, a visual document, a secondary source document, or a primary source. And they were going to be using Thinks. And what that does for some students, it creates predictability. Like I know that I can do this every Thursday. On Thursday, I know what we're going to do in this class. And what changes is the document itself. So that's another added benefit. Once you teach it once and you teach it 2 or 3 times, it begins to, the students begin to become autonomous and to be able to go through this on their own, which is what we as teachers want. Now, finally, each of these documents is connected to a disciplinary or historical thinking skill. And so you have the document, you have the think sheet, and then you have a disciplinary thinking skill. And the disciplinary thinking skills, here are some samples. So let's say this document, the focus is a comparison. We're comparing the Declaration of Independence to the document by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the Declaration of Sentiments. And so the students would not only do things, but then they would do a comparison. And so what that does is it gives students an ability to go a mile deep into a document. Instead of doing 10 documents in one day and going an inch deep, we're going a mile deep and getting the most important information out of these documents. Now, the question comes up, and we get this question a lot here at Thinking Nation: should I print it or do I use the platform? The correct answer is both are okay. I gave an example of how I like to print it. That's my preference. We have some teachers that use this and they use both. They use the platform and they print them. That is okay as well. I actually think that's best because it's varying it up, the tech use as well. But if you decide to use the platform, these can be assigned on our Thinking Nation platform, and teachers can have access to the students' answers on there. That is okay as well. The goal is this: implementation. And when we think about document analysis, we're thinking that in a history class, document analysis should be happening at least one time a week. So now I'm not saying you have to do document analysis Thursdays and every Thursday has to be like that, but you should be going through documents, historical documents, to develop these historical thinking skills with your students at least once a week. So in the description, you can have some links to this document, the Thinks document analysis sheet. I want to thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you later.